Well, better late than never, right? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Maximum News. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kid, Max Derrat, and I'm joined, as always, by Sybsidian of the Triple S League. How you doing, Syb?
Good, and a happy belated Valentine's Day to all. That is why we're a day late.
Yes. We were originally going to record on Tuesday, but I wasn't feeling very well that day at all. And then it was Valentine's Day, and now we're recording now. And we wanted to do a show because there was some stuff that we wanted to talk about. But we'll be back. We're aiming to record again back to our original schedule on Tuesday. We're going to record today. Just got a few things that we got to talk about. Syb, in this world, there are what I like to call macro issues and micro issues. Now, putting that dichotomy forward, people might think that using the words macro and micro might mean like macro issues are issues that are big and really important, while micro issues don't mean anything at all. No, not at all. Micro issues are just smaller issues alongside bigger issues, when you're trying to take into account the greater scheme of things. Sometimes people have the tendency to focus on micro issues too much and give it too much attention while taking their ball off the macro. It's just in human nature. And there were a couple stories that happened in the world of gaming this past week that sort of present that dichotomy quite well. And it's representative of a tendency that happens across all aspects of life. But of course, this is a gaming show, and we're going to talk about gaming. So I'm going to start with a macro issue, and then I'm going to go into a micro issue. The macro issue that I believe more people should be giving greater attention to, because it's very concerning, is as follows. Elden Ring. Of course, everybody knows about Elden Ring. It was like
everybody knows. Yep.
Yeah, it's a game that came out a couple of years ago. A huge smash success. It was the biggest, even for from a studio that is generally beloved. The success that it garnered was generally unprecedented. I think the sales estimates as of February 2023, that was a year ago, was that it sold 20 million copies. Now, that was a year ago. Who knows how many it's sold since then, right? Just huge new franchise. Well, naturally, whenever a new franchise comes out, and in this world where IP is king, there are going to be people that want to take advantage of that franchise and try to squeeze it for every penny that it's worth. And one particular institution that wants to do that is not necessarily From Software, but Tencent, the Chinese investment and holdings firm, that's probably, I don't think it's the biggest, but certainly like one of the top 3, I think, in the world. They own, I'm still not feeling that well, guys. They own a 16% share, or 17% share, one of those, in From Software. And because of that, they have wanted to, and have been pressuring From Software to let them use their IP to craft a mobile version of Elden Ring. Now, what does that mean? Well, according to this report from Reuters, it means that they want to take the Elden Ring IP and try to make a Genshin Impact type game out of that IP. So not a game where you pay 60 or 70 bucks up front and then you just got this wonderful single player game that you can play again and again and again. You get it for free, and then you get multiple in-app purchases. Now, this is concerning because, well, as a massive fan of From Software, and there's so many of them out there, if they're going along with this, well, maybe what the company that people have been sort of championing as the chosen one amongst all the wonderful game developers that are out there for giving us such consistently fantastic single-player games, if they're going to start doing this, does that mean that they're going to turn away from that and just start cranking out games where people are just sucked of all the money that they have, right?
Yeah, high pressure, predatory, FOMO / the best of the best triggers that you don't even know exist
right.
in your own mind being used, being weaponized not just used, but weaponized to make you spend money on this game right now.
Now, if that was what direction that From Software and Tencent were exclusively going towards, and they were just going to get rid of single-player games and stop putting any effort into that whatsoever, that would royally piss me off and would make millions of gamers across the globe despair. And yeah, well, I'm not going to say something. I was going to say something even more dark than that, but you get the point. But if they were to develop a mobile game and From Software was still able to put out single-player games at the same rate that they have, at the same quality that they have, fine. But it does concern me given the state of the industry right now and given how predatory Tencent and the whole idea of gacha games and live service games have been over the last several years. It is quite concerning. And that is why I consider something like this more of a macro issue. Syb, does that seem reasonable to you?
Yes, and yeah. You're right. It is a big issue. And one of the things that, like, it's this slippery slope thing, and the idea that you said it before, where it's like the chosen one syndrome. There is very much a chosen one syndrome that constantly, from all these big AAA studios, constantly lets us down. It's been happening for years, and it's been getting progressively worse and worse and worse. I hope that's not a case in this case, but like, and we've seen, as an update to last week's story, we've seen how Grand Blue is changing the game completely with the way that the microtransactions and interactions in that format.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Game.
Yeah, that's a good example. I'm glad you brought that one up, Syb. It's a good example of having the mobile version, but then having a fantastic single-player edition where you just pay the money up front and then you got this great, relaxing, entertaining game. Have both. That's fine. If they want to do that, that's fine. But, oh man, the temptation can seep in, and I just hope that Miyazaki and everybody over at From Software are sort of immune to that. Now, there is evidence to suggest that maybe nothing will come out of this at all. In the Reuters report that I'm looking at, it seems like they've been working on this for the past 2 years, but development has been very, very slow. And why is that? Well, it's because it's the same reason why when they tried to do the same thing for the Nier franchise that they had to cancel that project. It's because Nier isn't designed for that type of game. Nier is a heavily story-drenched game where the entire charm of it is its characters and its world. It's not that the combat, at least for Nier Automata and the Nier Replicant remake, is sort of like a sideshow to that. It's the combination of all those factors. If you were to try and turn that into a Genshin Impact type of game, you would just suck the soul out of it. Like, it would just be like anything else. Unless, I don't know, if you were able to do something, it would be an impossible feat. It's the same thing for Elden Ring. How do you take a game like Elden Ring and turn it into a gacha game? Well, I have absolutely no idea. And apparently they don't either. So let's hope that this, if they can't find something that's sort of along the lines of the Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, well, not Relink, but Grand Blue Fantasy just in general formula, that they'll just let this project die and, I don't know, maybe fund From Software so that they can put out a game every year and then just make that every year game bloody amazing, kind of like what Insomniac is doing, alternating between Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank every other year. That'd be dope. But yeah, I don't know if that doesn't seem like that's what they're going to do. Anyways, any thoughts on other thoughts on this side?
Well, just to again, Grand Blue actually did have not in this game, but in Versus, they actually did have a Nier Automata DLC thing where you got to play as both Nier and not Nier, 2B
and 9S.
Yeah, and so there is ways that this stuff can work, But the biggest thing is it comes down to is you have to respect the players. And if the players are not feeling like they're being respected, if there is a unhealthy way that they are doing things, you bet your booty that somebody is going to get in trouble somewhere, somehow. And, and we've seen what happens when fandoms go hostile. We've had a good example of it for well over a decade now with various fandoms. But just recently with the VTuber thing, it's like, if you peeve off enough people, they will burn your company to the ground.
Oh, sure.
Despite whatever experts you bring in to convince your stockholders that everything is fine. So this I really do worry about. Again, this really does remind me why I say things like, don't ever sell out.
Yeah.
Like if you own a company, don't ever sell out. Please, for the love of your IPs, your franchises, your everything, don't sell out. Like, don't let these big companies put pressure on you. And again with this, I'm shocked that Tencent has this much in stake in this company.
Yeah.
Because again, now I know they can't prevent it, but it's like, why do you think they did that? Why do you think they put all that? I'm trying to find the amount here, but why do you think they invested so heavily in the company?
Because they make such amazing bloody games, and they want to make sure that they don't become too big of a competitor to their style of producing entertainment. Yeah,
right. Like, but it's also a competitor thing. It's like, I don't understand. I don't get how. Yeah, I really don't get how this works.
Yeah,
where a company can just let a company who has every reason to make you fail buy up 15% of your stock and then just be like, you're fine, everything's fine. It's like, no, it's really not. It really isn't.
If companies like Insomniac and Remedy and Sucker Punch can do what they do, you don't need to let them influence you guys over at From Software to that greater degree. You're From Software. You made Dark Souls. You made Elden Ring. You made Bloodborne, for God's sake. Do you know how much money they would make, Sybe, if they just put a 60 FPS... Okay, well, here we go again. The 60 FPS Bloodborne port to the PC? They don't need 10 cents money. Okay, maybe they would get a little bit more money from 10, but still, they have options like that, where they don't have to sell out. And they could still rake in a whole lot of cash and continue to build their business and become kings of the world. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a macro issue. I do wish, like, there have been some people online that were talking about this, obviously, and were very concerned about it. But man, it is nothing compared to this story that I got for you guys. Every time I looked at Twitter this past week, and I scrolled down just a little bit on my timeline, I saw somebody giving their opinion on this stupid, bloody debate. So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out 2 weeks from now. I'm excited for it. Final Fantasy VII Remake is my least favorite out of all the Final Fantasy games I've played, but it's still good. I just have a lot of problems with it. But it was good enough that I was looking forward to Rebirth. Apparently, there's a demo out for the game at the moment, and people have been playing it, and they've been complaining about a design choice that is in the demo and I imagine in the greater game. It's, Sybe, when you play Resident Evil, like the Resident Evil remakes in particular, if they want you to notice something in the environment, they will dab it with yellow paint. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Final Fantasy VII Remake does the same thing. Apparently there's a point in the demo where Cloud Strife, he's the main character in case you guys live under a rock, is crawling up the side of a mountain or a hill or whatever, and in order to help people see where the ledges are that it can grab onto, those ledges are dabbed with yellow paint. And it's like, whatever. It's people can...
It's so convenient when you think about it in these game worlds. Like, somebody sets up a ladder, goes up with this thing, and starts painting. And one of the other fellow NPCs in the universe goes over and says, "Hey, Joe, why are you doing that?" "Oh, well, just in case somebody is trying to hand crawl their way across this crevice."
Right. Yes. Fine. If you try to think about it too much, and I can understand why.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like, I understand people looking at this and maybe it takes them out of their experience of the game a little bit. That's fine. And people can like or dislike the design choice. I'm not saying that. But the amount of attention and the amount of, just overzealous grandstanding on whether or not this was a good idea or a bad idea that was happening on social media this past week was nuts. Absolutely nuts. It drove me insane well, not totally, but I got close. Saib, I tried to I try to minimize my toxicity when I'm online. Like, there's some times where I'll go off, like when Silent Hill Ascension came out and I put out a video where I just ranted. But for the most part, I try to keep things positive. But, oh man, I had to weigh in on this whole thing. I guess that might be part of why people were just so talking about it so much, was just because of how stupid it was. There was one tweet that Sam Lake over at Remedy, that one of the greatest writers in the history of games, put out. He was getting on a plane, and he was behind a guy who held a yellow backpack. And then I can't remember exactly what he said, but maybe it was something to the effect of, "Man, I wouldn't have seen that backpack if there wasn't yellow paint on it." And then I just replied to him, "Sam, thank you so much for making the one insightful and hilarious tweet over this stupid meme."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was the thing that for a week long, people were engaged in fiery debate over. A micro issue contrasted with the macro issue of Tencent trying to influence From Software to come over to the dark side. Yeah. Saib, your opinion, I guess, on the whole yellow paint thing.
It's like I said, when you look at it from the perspective of inside the world, some of these things don't make sense. Some of these things are a little silly.
Sure.
And you wish that it would be like a little bit better outlined, right? It's sort of like some of the puzzles, right, that you have. It's like, "Hey, Max, I'm opening a bank."
Yeah.
Big announcement. "I'm opening a bank."
Sweet.
"We have the highest security system for this bank possible. What we've done is we've created 3 stones. One's blue, one's green, and one's purple. And you have to get the stones and you have to insert them into the bank vault. And then you have to press them in sequence to how they light up."
Right.
"And that's how you get your money."
Mm.
It's just one of those things where it's like, yes, in the game world, comparing it to reality is like, this makes no sense whatsoever. Right. Nobody would be this stupid. Like, this absolutely insane level of like, what in the world? Why? Yeah. What is going on here?
Well, how does matching a shadow up with something on the wall suddenly open up a door in Resident Evil?
Exactly.
Right.
Like, and you get this in there's a bunch of games that have that, like, matching up a shadow thing.
It's cool, but it makes no sense.
It makes zero sense whatsoever. It's like, how does this thing know where my perception is? Like, what in the world is going on here? Especially when it's third person, which, again, I actually enjoy these puzzles, but, like, it's clear that there's a problem with the logic of this. And so that's the silly thing. And of course it's silly and it's fun. And this is silly, fun / like weird that everybody's suddenly so emotionally invested in this particular thing when there's a boatload of other issues. One being like, why does nobody else kill monsters? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but killing some types of monsters generates you an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
So why not just have like a giant fortress that just moves around, captures monsters, drags them in, turns them into, and then reaps all the gil from them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness, why? This is very silly when you think about it. But yeah, that's the silliness of the translating the world that to the gaming world that you're enjoying your time in.
Yeah.
And so some of this stuff is a little silly. I think it's funny for the most part, and I think that overall it's like I'm glad they're arguing about things like this instead of saying, wow, this PC port is absolutely atrocious.
Right.
So at least there's that. So I'm looking forward to that in the future.
Now, to reiterate what I said before, macro issues and micro issues. That's not to say that micro issues have no relevance at all and shouldn't be talked about. Deciding whether or not to put yellow paint on things that you can climb on, that's a legitimate thing to talk about whether or not a game is designed well or could be designed better. It's just when you give so much attention to the micro that you take your ball off the macro. That I think that's something that we collectively as human beings need to do a better job with. Anyways, do you guys have any thoughts on either of these two topics? Do you think that my perception on this is overblown? Do you think it's accurate? What do you guys think? I want to know in the comment section below. Okay. I'm feeling a little bit winded. Like I said, I'm not feeling that well. So I'm going to toss things over to Syb so he can tell me something that will make me even more nauseous. Skull and Bones, go ahead.
Oh, the majesty. No, Max, this isn't just Skull and Bones. This isn't just a normal gaming experience. This is a quadruple A game.
Really?
This is a game that is worth you slapping down $100 for, because this is an absolutely amazing thing that has never been done before.
Really? So does it have like an expansive open world like Sea of Thieves where you can... No? What about can you like put your ship up against another person's and jump over the other ship and then fly?
No.
Okay. Is there any point where you can get off your ship and go explore an island?
No, can't do that. And if you're wondering, no, you can't do a paint job on your ship. You can't customize the trim, the style, the other things that you might want to do. The head maiden headpiece, right? Like the figurehead, the figurehead piece. Maiden head is a totally different thing. The figurehead, all this kind of stuff. Can you customize your crew? Like can you pick up like Sam and Jeffrey and John and Tim and then have them all, like, name them all, like you do in other games that sometimes you play. Sometimes you want to play an RPG like that lets you rename the characters that you're fighting with. It's like, can you name them to all your family members and customize their looks, and like, you want to ship of Valkyries. So you only want to see the beautiful women and whatnot. No, can't do any of that. In fact, there are less features in this game in the sailing thing, I believe, than the original game that this is based off of. The one from over a decade ago that this thing was based on, and that for some odd reason we had to wait a decade for this 4A quadruple amazing game to end all seafaring games. It might end all seafaring games, but not because it's so good, because maybe people are going to get sick of this and have such a vitriolic reaction that the next time any other studio announces a sailing game, the whole auditorium is going to be filled with people throwing up.
Mm-hmm. Like they're seasick.
This is just, it's such a joke, and this has launched to such abysmal ratings. And I want to make this clear: there definitely is a market for this kind of game.
Sure.
The original game concept, and this is the dumb thing. I was listening to people who played the demo of this one of the original formats of this 7 years ago. Okay, so 7 years ago, they had a game that they could have put to market immediately. But for whatever dumb, stupid reason, the leaders over at Ubisoft said, no, let's just keep rebuilding this from scratch over and over and over again. You know what would have been a brilliant idea? Is if they had launched the game in that state for like $25. And then they said, hey, this is a the core concept game. We want to expand on this with a better engine. So jump in here for $25. It's already made. You just jump in and you play it for $25 and you join our Discord, our forums, follow us on social media and just let us know what you want us to improve upon in the future.
Yeah.
And they probably at this point could have been releasing the third game in the series.
Yeah.
Which it would be doing just phenomenal right now. But instead, leadership somehow got in to their vacant heads that no. The game that people played 7 years ago that they liked, that they loved, that they were really enjoying, that game wasn't good enough and needed to stay in development for another 7 years so that we could get something that is, in most cases, worse than the original.
Yeah. Why would it? Yeah.
I am utterly and totally shocked at the immense stupidity. Which reminds me why they have had so many lawsuits, why they have had so many losses. Ubisoft is, I think, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to get anything away from, the companies are stuck with the same leaders making those same dumb decisions, but now they're even worse at their jobs than they were 10 years ago. At least 10 years ago, they were generally had some kind of a concept of how to run a company, but now they're all encased in legal debt, legal bills, and just giant stacks of cocaine. Apparently, I'm going to assume that they're now at the point where they just can't function.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's the same for the CEO Yves Guillemot. His brain simply can't function because of all the cocaine that he's been doing. Yeah. To the point that he's calling, and this is why we were talking about this in the first place, Skull and Bones a quadruple A game. Which, at this point, given the developers that have used that phrase, every single time, from what I understand, it's been used, it hasn't exactly turned out that way. The only other time, I know there have been other times besides this, but the only other time I can recall was when the developer of the Callisto Protocol called it a quadruple A game. And, I didn't mind the Callisto Protocol. I thought it was decent. But, man, it is not a quadruple A game. I mean, the best thing I could say about that game, the graphics were great, but even that wasn't quadruple A.
There is one project that is being done over at Microsoft.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Apparently a quadruple A game.
Yeah, Perfect Dark. Yeah, I'll believe it when it comes out in the next 7 years.
Yeah, we don't, and I don't know. This is one of those things where it's we've heard a lot about it. We don't actually know if it's Perfect Dark, because the quotes that have been around it have been very confused on it. It's they are working on something that has you cannot complete everything that the game has to offer. You can't even go everywhere in the game that it has to offer within if you had 500 hours, you could not scrape even the if you did everything just once, not even perfected it, just did everything once, you couldn't do that. That's supposedly what they're working on. But this, comparing that in any way, shape, or form, even remotely to this, is just a joke. Now, Starfield has had its issues, and I would say that the game release is not where it needs to be. But I would call Starfield I would call any game that released in the last like 6 months that was made by a AAA studio. I would call any of them far superior and far closer to an actual quadruple A experience than what they're claiming this giant pile of dung is, because that's what this is, and it's an absolute insult to gamers to go, this is what you need to expect as the above the normal tier of games, and you should just be happy with this, period. It's like it's so foolish.
And it's so arrogant, because it's like they're acting like there's no other competition out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, there was a game that I played on the original Xbox that was tall ship combat like this. Played almost identical. Not quite not absolutely identical, but very similar and very in a lot of ways. Island interactions was basically the same. And that game was made on a microscopic budget compared to this in a lot less time, and I think is honestly probably a little bit better than what they're offering here.
Yeah.
It is absolutely astonishing to me that they're claiming that this is a quadruple A, that it's good, that's worth it.
You know what's a game that is sort of akin to Skull and Bones that came out on the original Xbox that wasn't ships, but it was planes? Crimson Skies. Do you remember that game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That game was dope, man.
Yeah,
especially online.
Man, and that's, again, this is one of these games where it's like, where is that IP now?
Yeah.
Who has it? Why haven't they done something with it? Because again, it's like these games, when they originally came out, a lot of them did really well for the tiny amount of like investment that they got. They did really good. And it's like, great, just do it again and improve a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, just stick with you. Don't do anything grandiose. Don't buy them a brand new 40th floor, multi-story space in a giant tower in the middle of a city for their office and stuff like that. Just keep the team growing healthily, making good games, putting them out. That's all you need. You don't need them all to make enormous amounts of money. You just need them to make, to fill out your basket of games that you can offer, maybe for free via the subscription, or sort of free, maybe in the subscription. Yeah. But it works, and these leaders are just. I'm trying not to like become swearing or become very abrasive, but the leadership at Ubisoft for a very long time, I've got tons of stories that I've told on it. I've got lots of experience with people who have worked with them and have seen things that you just look at, you shake your head and you go, who is this madman making these choices? Because this is not only is it vile, but it is absolutely ridiculous that this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. So yeah, no, don't buy this game. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
Sea of Thieves is better by far.
Yeah, I wanted to play that game forever, and apparently it's amazing now. That or I might just go and play Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag at some point, because I never got into the Assassin's Creed franchise, and by all accounts, it's probably good that I didn't. But maybe one day when it dies and I'm old and I just don't care anymore, I'll pick it up and see what all the fuss was about.
I'll probably get into a lot of trouble for this. And I'm sorry. There's a lot of people who really like the Assassin's Creed universe. Mm-hmm. It is, frankly, to me, extremely overrated. Like, not a little bit. It is extremely overrated.
Hey, man, I don't know. Like, I haven't really given the games a solid try. I did play like 10 hours of the original Assassin's Creed. It was whatever. It was fine. And then I tried playing Assassin's Creed 2. I couldn't get into it. And, more power to you if you enjoy it. But I don't know. There's not enough there that appeals to me that I can't get in another game. All right. We just got a couple more stories. What's going on with WoW?
So this is a story this is an update to a story that I have told that I kind of like talked around the bush a few times.
For the record, WoW is World of Warcraft. In case you guys didn't get that.
So WoW is so SOD is doing great. That's Season of Discovery. That's their return to vanilla, but things are very different.
Okay.
So different that rogues can tank and mages can heal and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it is popping off. It is very fun. It is very engaging. It is very cool. And it's doing really well. Numbers are really through the roof. So many people are coming back. They're talking about. I'm talking with people in the guild that I play with, where it's like, these people have come back after like 10 years of not playing, and they're meeting old friends. They're bringing new friends, new people that they game with, and they're coming over and they're having a blast. And it's just this, because it was the way that vanilla was, but now with like this new stuff, it's so much more fun, and that's great. That's good. But that's not why we're talking about. I was going to mention SOD's update, but that's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about today is that a confirmation from a story that I had hinted at and kind of like postulated a few times. There is this leader at Blizzard who, this is the guy who came up with the you never get the whole meal when you go to his video game restaurant, using it as an example, as a way to kind of explain what's going on here. Have you ever played a game and you go, wow, this is really cool. I wonder what the lore behind this character is.
Yeah.
And then you get this like little thing where it's like, oh yeah, it's in this book. And you're like, in a book? Yeah, if you want to know what happens with this cool character that you met inside the video game, you have to read the book. Well, like, can't you just tell me what's going on with the story here? Like, I want to make sure that, I want to see what's happened. Yeah. No, you got to go buy the book. And hey, there's also a movie coming out. You have to go see the movie in order to get the full lore story of this character. You're like, that's really kind of weird. It'd be like Baldur's Gate, having half of the story in the game, then suggesting that you go buy the book so that you can read the book, you can catch up on what the characters did. Then when you go back to the game, you can continue to play knowing what's going on, because the storyline is actually legitimately separated from the continuation of the experience that you were having in the game. So you were playing the game, you were experiencing the story, then suddenly the experience stops. The character, the insight, all that stuff stops. Then it comes back after a little while, and you're very confused. Why is this person doing this? Why is that person doing that? None of this makes sense. And you're told, well, you're dumb because you should have read the book. And you're like, wait, is this stuff based on the book? No. The book came out after this latest patch that you just had, experienced. Oh, so you're wanting me to pay for the game. Then you're taking out a significant chunk of the story that has a direct correlation to what is going on with the story, and you're moving that into a book that I need to buy. Yes, then you need to read the book. Then you need to watch the show. That's not what's happening here, but that's sort of what they were trying to go for a little while ago. Then you play that. Then you understand more stuff about it, and that's how you experience the story of the world that you're playing. You don't just get to do or play or have, do the things that you want to do. No. That would be way too simple. No, you're supposed to buy on multiple tiers, multiple expensive things, so that you know what's going on with the main characters of the game that you're playing. The person who came up with this. Now, there were other people who tried to do this. There was a sci-fi TV, so TV sci-fi. It's an actual like channel, like it's an organization. They were making sci-fi movies, and they did this game called, I think it was Defiance, where the half of the story was in the MMO. It was a shooter MMO, and then the other half of the story was in the TV series that they ran for, I think, 2 seasons, and then it crashed and burned really spectacularly. Yeah. But this guy who did this in WoW, his name is Steve Denuser, and he is the primary person responsible for this. And I had been receiving reports and rumors, and I think I had mentioned it on the podcast a few times. I definitely mentioned it to certain people within my guild and a couple other places, that I had kept hearing rumors that he was out. But we couldn't confirm it. We couldn't get a confirmation by anybody from Blizzard that this dude is not working there anymore until LinkedIn did it for us last weekend, I should say, where it came out that Steve Denuser is no longer a Blizzard employee and hasn't been since November of last year. And if you're all wondering, November of last year is when they had that big giant showcase, BlizzCon, and they showed a bunch of stuff that they were doing and new stuff that was happening at the company. Also where the leader kind of said, hey, I'm going to be here for a long time, and the only way that they're going to get me out of the company is by dragging me out. And then he also quit last week or was fired when Microsoft laid off a ton of people from Blizzard Studios and all that kind of mess. But yeah, turns out this guy was let go, but he wasn't let go because of as part of the other firings. He was directly shown the door or quit in response to being shown the door, that that he's been out since then, which was way before all of the other firings. And you kind of wonder, well, why is that? Well, it turns out there's some problems with how he ran both the story, what he was doing with some of the content, and how he was getting certain possibly, allegedly, some kickbacks on stuff that he wasn't really. He was designing this stuff to do that so that he would make more money.
Yeah.
And so not really playing to the strength. And again, this guy has been in charge of WoW's writing as a whole for, oh, good Lord, quite a few number of years. It's been a couple of major expansions since he took over primarily. And apparently when Chris Metzen came back, one of the original founders of Blizzard, and one of the primary people who wrote all the lore for almost all of the World of Warcraft stuff, he and him started headbutting, and the guy was out. And I'm glad, because somebody who takes the narrative of a story, deliberately takes the big, huge issues that you're wondering what's going on with in one source of media, and puts it into another and says, now pay me again. This person doesn't respect the trade. They don't respect the story. They don't respect the players. They don't respect the consumers. They're just trying to find a way to maximize the amount of money that they're getting out of you. And it's gross. It's disgusting. I'm glad that he's gone. His writing was terrible. His writing format was the power of friendship solves everything. Which,
I'm sorry, I didn't know World of Warcraft was Kingdom Hearts all of a sudden.
Apparently, that's and it's not even Kingdom Hearts has a better storyline than what we've been seeing in World of Warcraft for years now.
Fair enough.
It's an absolute travesty, and again, it's like we started off Dragonflight with a bit of a nice upbeat storyline, but and things were feeling kind of good, but then you just had weird stuff like several main characters not talking to each other at all, despite the fact that they're in a position where they really should be having big conversations. And apparently his reply to that was, oh, well, they'll have to get those in the book that we release. It's yeah, that's you're not doing your job right.
No, it's anytime that story has been ripped out of a game or a TV show or a movie and sold separately that you have to get in order to understand what's going on, it's been a disaster. Talk about Kingdom Hearts, for example. Just by making certain games exclusive to certain platforms and having to play those games all in order to understand what the hell's going on in Kingdom Hearts 3, same thing. When it comes to the Marvel Universe, they've been experiencing this quite a bit recently because it's If you want to understand what the hell's going on in our movies, you have to watch the TV shows. Kind of like what happened with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. You had to watch WandaVision first. If you wanted to watch the Marvels, you had to watch Ms. Marvel first. It's not a good idea. Same thing with Destiny. To use another video game example, one of the reasons why I fell off of Destiny, even though I played quite a bit of it back in the day, was because it felt like it had no story. You just had to go and read the lore entries, which were cool, but why wouldn't you just try to integrate that into the game that you were building already? It's just never a good idea, and this is just a perfect example, but it seems like they're learning from their mistakes, if I'm understanding you right.
Yes, so and Metzen is back in control. He is doing stuff that people have been wanting him to do for a while. I don't think this is going to immediately fix WoW, but I do think that they're headed in the right direction now. And again, like, yes, we're like, don't assume that Microsoft is going to be the savior here, because, well, they fired a lot of really good people when it came to the firings that they just did. And it wasn't like, hey, let's investigate this particular team or this particular, aspect of the company. Let's see, who, if we have any people who are just kind of like, they've quit inside their head ages ago, or they just don't care, or they're maybe they're toxic or whatever. It wasn't any of that. It was just like, hey, fire a bunch of people from this department. Fire the entire department that does this. We'll outsource it. It's like, that might be a really bad idea. Stuff like that. And that's happened too with this firing. We've seen this now with some news coming out about the customer service aspect. And now it appears that when you submit a ticket for an issue, just one dude is rubber stamping everything as no, right? And so like that's not going to lead to a good customer experience, because I can guarantee you that there's problems with that way of dealing with everything. You ever see Bruce Almighty?
Oh, of course, yeah. You used that analogy a few shows ago where he's trying to answer emails.
Okay. Yeah. Just like copy, paste, yes, everything. And that's that. I couldn't remember if I told this to you or told this to Guildies. I think I probably did it both. But yeah, that is what we are seeing here now. So there are some silver linings to this, and again, I don't want anybody to go and attack Steve or to harass him. That's not what I want. But I am very glad that he's no longer working there, because he gave writers for video game stuff, he gave them a bad name by coming up with one of the most slimiest, grossest things that you could possibly do, and that is to tell people that you don't get the full experience. You don't get to experience the story that you're growing attached to. You don't get to see the characters make these choices in this position. You have to give me more money, and by the way, I get royalties because I wrote it. Or maybe my buddy wrote it, and then there's some backroom shenanigans going on there. Because I can tell you for sure that there was one book that they sold a lot of copies on because a lot of people were really interested about why a character did something so against what they were for so long, and just were like, nah, it's fine. And so that kind of stuff is like, that's not healthy for games. I don't like the idea that in order to get this experience, you have to go do all this other stuff to see the story. If I'm playing an RPG, which WoW is, the story should come to me through the game that I'm playing it.
Yeah.
I don't need to stop the game, go read a book for 20 hours, then come back and go, oh, yeah. Now I understand what's going on. So that is so arrogant and rude, it's disgusting.
Yeah. It's not to say you can't have supplementary material on the side that enhances your appreciation of the overall universe. It's just that you shouldn't make it mandatory that you should have to do that. But yeah. It seems so obvious to people like you and I, but apparently not to the people behind the scenes. But anyways.
No.
Anything else to say about WoW, or can we move on to the final story?
Yeah, no, that's it. Basically, Season of Discovery is shaping up to be really good. And if you're wondering, hey, should I go in for the new expansion that's coming out, The War Within? And I would say If you're a hardcore WoW fan, you might want to check it out. If you are a game fan and you like MMOs and you think there might be something to it, I would say probably don't jump in on it at launch because it's probably not going to be that great. They need an entire expansion to fix most of the problems that they have. I think the next expansion is probably going to be absolutely amazing. I really do. I really think that it's going to turn around at that point. Unless, of course, Microsoft throws another monkey wrench into it.
Yeah. Which they very well could. Anyways, speaking of throwing a monkey wrench into things, well, I don't know. We'll see. What's Disney doing with Fortnite?
Disney has been hemorrhaging money a lot. Their parks are not doing good. Their movies are not doing good.
Yeah.
Out of, I think, the last 20 movies, somebody said, I may be incorrect here, so don't quote me on this. This is what I heard from somebody who covers Disney stuff. Out of the last 20 movies that they've done, they have only recouped the standard investment fee in 2 of them. So that doesn't mean that they lost money on all of them. It's that they have this projection of how much money they're supposed to make, and they've only hit that on 2 movies. On some movies, they have lost money, a lot of money, and other movies have just they made back what it took to make the movie, but not the advertising. So in a lot of cases, you spend almost as much money on advertising as you do for the actual production of the film. So in a lot of cases, they're in the hole massively for that. They're having a lot of problems. And I will say that, again, somebody who covers Disney told me this. I do not know how true it is, but apparently they were able to check it out. Apparently the board members of Disney have done nothing but sell their shares for the past 10 years, and currently they have not bought, nor in some cases do they own any shares at all for the company that they oversee. That's really weird, but not gaming related. So why are we talking about this? Well, because despite being in that state of having hemorrhaging money and having leadership that is very poor, they've done probably one of the most interesting and slightly bizarre moves that I could have imagined, and that is that they invested $1.5 billion into Epic Games. Epic was not struggling for money at all. And this isn't like it's not a direct, they're not buying stock in the company. They're literally giving Epic $1.5 billion and saying, hey, we want you to use Fortnite to push all of our Disney, well, in this case, garbage, onto the people who are playing Fortnite, which are mostly younger kids.
Right.
So they seem to be making sort of a 4D chess maneuver here, in that they're trying to get all of, because what's the most common game that all the young people are playing, like below the age of 12?
Minecraft,
and the answer to that is
Fortnite. Yeah,
it's Fortnite. Minecraft is close to that still, but it is very much kind of the older generation thing, whereas the Fortnite is what all of the really, if you go into a Fortnite lobby, again, haven't done this in years, but I've been told that somebody went into a channel consecutively for days upon days upon days, and they didn't meet one person who was over the age of 15.
Right.
So if that's the case, that's kind of weird. And also, I mean, I hope their security is looking out for stuff. But this is bizarre and interesting that Disney invested $1.5 billion in a game company when they have the rights to make any Star Wars game they could want to. And there are 30 Star Wars projects that people have been begging for, remakes that they have been begging for.
Yeah, where the hell's 1313?
Right? Again, another game where it's they could have made bank with that money. And instead, instead they threw it away. They formatted the drives that the game was on. Why? And then they gave it to Epic, not to Epic, to EA. And EA did nothing aside from, what was it? Like, it was Rogue Squadron, I guess.
Rogue Squadron and Battlefront 1 and 2.
Yeah, that was it. A decade of having this unlimited license to do whatever you wanted. And I mean, I know people hate pod racing from the movie, but I actually liked pod racing as the game, as an experience. I like racing games, and I like sci-fi racing games because you get to experience something that you don't normally get to experience. But again, for some reason, they have done nothing with this for a really long time. And you're going, wow, that seems very strange. And the answer is, yeah, it really does. So interesting. We are living in an interesting time. So yeah, lots of people are blasting Disney for making this investment. I think it was sort of actually a good move in that idea because in the sense of like trying to like secure the younger audience, because I think they've lost the current audience completely. Like the Marvel movies, the Marvel stuff is just not going right anymore. Mm-hmm. Star Wars has been, toxic, and again, I don't understand how Kathleen Kennedy is
still has her job. Yeah,
like how does she still have her job? You could, if you wanted to destroy a brand intentionally, you couldn't do a better job than what they've done.
Yeah,
and again, it's just like why? Like you had so much potential and you just threw it in the wood chipper, but for what reason I don't understand. So bizarre, weird. Overall, I think it's just sort of a smart move, but I really wonder what's going on there.
What the long-term strategy
what the long-term strategy and effects of this are going to be. So if you're into Star Wars, if you're into any of those kind of game products, if you're interested in watching what's happening with one of my I wouldn't call him my favorite, but one of the people that I go back and forth with on Twitter the most, Tim Sweeney, the guy who owns Epic. It's interesting. I like him and I hate him at the same time for a bunch of different reasons. And I keep bugging him about making a remake for a Jill of the Jungle. Because that was one of the first games that he made. He was quite young when he made it.
You and Jill in the Jungle.
I love it, man. It's great. But that's it. It's an interesting thing. Let me know what you think of all this stuff in the comments below.
What I think is that we got Deadpool 3 coming out next year, and that's all I care about. Whether or not
it's looking interesting.
Looking damn interesting. And we have good Canadian kid Ryan Reynolds to thank for that. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this episode of Maximum News. I cannot wait to go lie down. Not because I don't enjoy doing this. I love doing this. It's just this week hasn't been particularly good. But thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Leave any of your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to hit the like button. If you like this episode, it helps us out a lot. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me. Syb, anything you want to plug before we finish?
No, that's it for now. We'll see where this all goes.
All right. Yeah, I just had to mute there because there's a train going on off in the back. And you guys could just find me on all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I will have a video coming out on Tuesday. It'll be on a video game called Fear and Hunger. And if you haven't heard of that game, it's like, well, why should I care about it? Let me just put it to you this way. Of all the hundreds of videos I've done on my channel, that video is going to include probably the most shocking discovery that I've ever made about a game in my entire YouTube career. So stay tuned for that. All right. Until then, guys, until we do this again next week, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.
Goodbye.